Today, we're going to talk about the $1 trillion wealth transfer that's underway and if it's a boom or bust for Saskatchewan's housing market.
I don't want to use the word perfect storm because it makes it sound like it's a bad situation, but it's a perfect connection of a lot of factors right now that are driving some key situations.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Keys. Today we have Dr. Keith Willoughby. He's the Dean of the Edwards School of Business here at the University of Saskatchewan. Today we're going to talk about the $1 trillion wealth transfer that's underway and if it's a boom or bust for Saskatchewan's housing market. Keith, can you give us a little bit of an idea of what economic trends we're going to see in Saskatchewan that are going to impact the Saskatchewan homeowners?
Well, good afternoon, Ryan, and thank you for the invitation to be on the show. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about an area that's a passion of mine, an area of some teaching interest, as well as some research into sort of this whole perspective of supplies and demand and economics. I think when you look at the trends right now, I don't want to use the word perfect storm because it makes it sound like it's a bad situation, but it's a perfect connection of a lot of factors right now that are driving some key situations in Saskatoon. We are seeing the benefit, I would say, of a growing, thriving economy. Even if the sheriff of the tariff, the guy down south, if I can use that language here,
sure can,
even if the sheriff of the tariff is doing what he is south of the border, Saskatchewan is somewhat resilient to that, which has enabled us to maintain that growth. The one trend that I see that's really been beneficial from our economic growth is the fact that we export a lot from this province. We are a province that's blessed with natural resources, but the United States is not our only dance partner. So we've been able over the past decades to diversify, where 45% of our trade is not going to countries named the United States. So that provides a benefit that other provinces don't have. To me, that's giving some stability to the economic structure of the province. To me, that's what's helping, I see, economically to drive some of the impact we've seen that with housing markets, with housing prices, and the real surge we're seeing in the market. So yes, there's obviously an economic growth. You couple that though with, they go back to Econ 101 in the university, supply and demand. Invariably, situations in businesses often come down to supply and demand. We have an incredible demand for housing driven by immigration, driven by people who are moving into Saskatoon, again, using that as a base case, maybe from rural areas. We also have a limited supply. So the supply isn't matching demand. So to me, you put all those three factors together with growth in the economy that's stable and resilient, along with demand that is surging and supply that isn't meeting the needs. And now you're seeing the situation that we are engaged in as a province here. Again, I don't want to say perfect storm, because there are benefits of what we're seeing here from a housing situation, but it's for people who are in Saskatoon and area, it's to me a product of a real thriving situation in this region.
Right. So those are the reasons why our economy is a little bit more thriving compared to the other provinces across the country.
And to give you a good example, Alberta, 90% of their trade goes to the U.S. So whenever the U.S. sneezes, they're catching a cold. Unlike, say, Saskatchewan, which again has a bit of a buffer, a bit of insulation from some of the shenanigans we see south of the border.
Right. Okay. So earlier this year, you were on CBC. You were talking a little bit about the $1 trillion wealth transfer.
Yes.
I'd love to dive into that a little bit more. I think it's a great topic, and it really affects us all here. So what is it? Why is it happening, and how long is it going to be here for?
That's a great question. If I knew the answer to the last question, I'd own some investment company or something and be able to really tag the market. What's happening here is, I'd say if you look generationally, we are in a situation right now where individuals, say, purchased a home 20, 30, 40 years ago. They're in a situation now where they are retiring and maybe selling their property. Some of them might have had farms, and farms have increased in their value. So you end up with this $1 trillion worth of wealth in the economy of people who are selling properties, who are looking for properties. So you got a situation now where are they passing on that wealth to their offspring, to their children, to their grandchildren? So children might be able to inherit properties that maybe parents or grandparents already owned. So you have this enormous, again, I don't want to use the word bubble because I'm going to make it sound like it's going to burst, but you have this enormous circumstance right now where I'd say, unlike the 1980s, when you may have had high interest rates, we have rode a crest of reasonably modest interest rates for decades, even though we've had some spikes recently. But I think you're creating now the situation with people who've had homes that now are passing on to the next generation. So you've got individuals who are inheriting property. You have people that are selling property that are, again, creating that large wealth nest egg for a lot of individuals in society.
Right. Well, we were even looking at some of the stats that were coming in, and I think in 2019, we're looking at the average gift amount has increased from 66,000 to 115,000 in 5 years. Just from the parents or from that, from that situation.
So two words, ka-ching.
Yeah.
In terms of individuals now who can inherit this property.
Right.
And without there being like an inheritance tax or a wealth tax, again, if you're the recipient of this windfall,
right,
it can be tremendously advantageous. It can be the seed money for you to maybe purchase your own property, or you can inherit something that somebody's already had.
Right. So putting in for people in Saskatchewan, how does this really affect that housing market? And what can they see that's coming around the corner? Like I see from the supply and demand level of things is that we have a real housing deficiency, is that we're in a deficit right now. So, from your perspective, is values going to keep on going up in that, or is it, what would homeowners expect to see in the next couple of years from your perspective?
From my perspective, I'll give it as my opinion, or maybe a bit of an informed opinion because I've looked at the data.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the bearer of bad news for individuals that might be wanting to enter the market, but I don't see this market trimming downwards in the next number of years. I think because in Saskatchewan we have, for a lot of folks, a rural economy where individuals that have been on the farms, been on the family farm, if they sold their land holdings, if they sold their estates, if they've passed on and left a will to their beneficiaries, to the next generation, again, you're creating that pocket of wealth. And so that's helping to drive a lot of the wealth creation that we're seeing in the province. The impact that that's creating then is it's basically providing opportunities for people to enter the housing market in a market that's already strapped with supply.
Right.
So you've got this surge of demand coming in where people have the ability to maybe get that first home with a significant down payment, along with a supply that's been stable or limited. It's further going to exacerbate the imbalance between demand and supply. I would see over the next while that housing prices are going to continue on the upward trajectory. I can't see a pathway in which there'll be a significant downturn.
Right.
I would say, again, not that I'm an expert on what other jurisdictions feature for housing prices, but we are relatively attractively priced in the Saskatoon area. I think that's also helping to enable people to get a good value proposition when they purchase property.
For sure. Technically, we're still one of the most affordable in Canada, right? So for the average person, this means that probably get into the market a little bit quicker than planned. Doesn't matter if it's just getting in from a condo and whatever you can afford at this time, and growing with the market would probably be a good scenario from your perspective.
Yeah, the best time to buy a property is today, and the second best time is tomorrow.
Right.
To me, I would not want if people to delay this because it takes a longer time for supply to catch up. Demand can pivot quickly, but supply, it takes time for builders to be able to create those properties that are the real need for society. So again, if you're an individual that you're looking to enter the market, I'd say look at the situations here in Saskatoon, enter the market, recognizing that even though prices, again, have increased, it's still an investment in property, and it's an investment that's not going to depreciate. I see, again, that continued upward surge.
Right. Okay. So what data points that suggest that would support this from it would be in regards to local real estate market? Do you have specific things that would be data related in that regard?
Not that I can recall offhand,
No, okay.
but there's data produced by the Saskatchewan Realtors Association, SRA.
Yeah.
There's data that's produced that's publicly available that in my mind, that if you look at supply as being a key factor, if you look at the number of housing units that are available. Earlier we were chatting that you said there's basically the need for 2,000 is currently 700.
Roughly, at least 13 from where we're looking at.
So that's a huge gap right there. So right away, that's a data point that's key. I think the other data point to look at is the fact that from the city of Saskatoon's perspective, we've seen the population increases. We've seen growth of the city. For a lot of us here who might have lived in this city for decades, we may remember the years in which housing prices might have been 100K. Well, now, of course, it's much larger than that. We're seeing population that's increasing. We're seeing growth in the city. So when I look at data points, again, I see supply imbalance in terms of what should be available versus what's currently available. And I also see people entering into this, people moving into Saskatoon. We are fortunate in Saskatchewan that we are driven by natural resources, but we are no longer the hewers of wood and drawers of water for everybody.
Right.
The benefit that I've also seen in especially in Saskatoon, is the growth of the tech economy.
Right.
And so having companies, use Vendas as an example, and other companies that have really created that entrepreneurial or innovative stream and are able to me, create, again, another opportunity for jobs. So that's, when you combine all those factors, again, you're seeing the growth in terms of people entering the market with the willingness to purchase and the ability to buy.
Yeah. And what's the idea with the tech side that they would find Saskatchewan attractive? Is it the cost of living? Is it, having the university here? What would be the main things that would be driving that tech factor in Saskatoon?
I'd love to say it's the university.
Right. Yeah.
I would say anecdotally, the university obviously is a major draw.
Right.
I think having a polytechnic in the same city is also another draw to be able to really strengthen that value proposition. Recognize it does get cold in Saskatoon.
Right.
So we do have times when it's going to snow. So that obviously there'll be rough weather. But I think what you're seeing that draws that tech sector is it's the access to talent, and it's the access to people that are trained in universities, in business schools, in engineering disciplines. So that growth there, the growth of the ability to have a place and have it be affordable.
Right.
So not where, say, an entering price is in the millions of dollars. Yeah. I think you've got fair and attractive entry points for people wanting housing, and that can be something that's really important when you look at your main expense will be housing and accommodation.
For sure. And
if the first number starts with a 1 and there's 6 digits after, and you're looking at like millions of dollars for a property, that could be some people a deal breaker.
For
Here,
sure.
Currently, they're more attractive. That can help to fuel the enthusiasm.
Yeah. Well, like you say, we're under half of that, right? Like I think our benchmark price last month was coming in at $435, right? So, so we've talked a lot about positive things that are happening in Saskatchewan. Is there any cons or pros and cons that the audience should be watching for in the next couple of years to see that change? I know when you're talking about the $1 trillion tsunami effect, is that you were kind of saying originally from the 2023 to 2026. Do you think that's going to last a little bit longer than what originally was thought?
I would see maybe a couple years longer, but it's not in perpetuity.
Okay.
So eventually that $1 trillion tsunami will dry up as individuals who had properties that have, again, passed away or left to their beneficiaries. Eventually that pool of people will no longer, that pool of resources will no longer be there. I'd say maybe there's 2 cons that are cautionary points people might want to watch out for. Right. Number 1 is still maintain a key focus on interest rates. Because for individuals, again, who enter the market, if they're really leveraged in terms of entering in with a minimum down payment, and they have a property that's quite expensive,
right.
Interest rates could be a real tipping point. And so I think that's one thing to watch out for. Okay. Take advantage with mortgages if you can lock in at decent rates as opposed to maybe riding the wave, because if the wave goes up, again, that could be challenging. The number 2 con, and I don't have the solution for it, but I'll mention it as a con. Right. And maybe it's more of a social question. What do you do with people that don't have access to parents or grandparents that had the huge estate?
Right.
And so are we perpetuating in society that, to be blunt, the rich are getting richer and the poor are staying poorer?
Yeah.
I don't know what the solution is for that, but it could widen the chasm between the haves and have-nots. Right. Where if you don't have access to resources from family, it could be hard to enter the market at $500,000 when you might need, $25K as a down payment or something to that effect. Exactly. Yeah. That could be a challenge for people. I think that's where government policy, I think, might be able to address that. Although we know there are jurisdictions around the world where not everybody has a home, so we are blessed. For sure. In this region where people have access to home ownership. But I think from a societal perspective, that's a question for policymakers, for governments, and for communities to address.
Right. So all in all, is that you're kind of saying is that, would obviously the mining sector, those kind of things play a big factor. But all in all, is that we're kind of moving, so we're going to continue in our own little bubble in Saskatchewan compared to the rest of Canada because of a lot of the things you were mentioning today, correct?
Yeah, I think there's three things here. I think our natural resources sector will continue to be strong.
Right.
We still need to feed the world. So if you look at potash, if you look at uranium as a source of fuel, we are blessed at agriculture with our wheats and grains and lentils and peas. So we are fortunate there. Number two, we are less reliant on U.S. trade than other Canadian jurisdictions, which does position us well in a tariff-controlled economy to at least have some stability. And number three, I still see Saskatoon as a destination point for people, not a stop off, not a place to be here for a while and leave, but I think as a destination point because there's attractive elements for being here with affordability, with access, and with opportunity.
Right. No, these are all, great points, that's for sure. Well, is there anything else that you would like to leave with our audience that you think that would be beneficial for them in the next couple of years?
The one challenge I have, again, I haven't done any research per se on this topic, but one just from a societal perspective is, again, maybe this is another issue to be careful of, to look at in terms of a con. When you get into situations that people say that have stable incomes, are in a good career, that are owning homes and paying a mortgage, if they're paying less than people that are maybe on a lower income to rent property, to me, when rental rates begin to really increase and people's more of their income is going to rental rates and they're actually paying more than somebody who already has a decent job who's owning a home, right. That's a challenge, and I don't know how long that imbalance can continue because if rental rates continue to increase because landlords, landladies, they need to make a return on their investment.
I get it. Yeah.
There needs to be meat in the bone for them. But if it creates that challenge with individuals who have less lucrative incomes, who are paying more and more for rent, that's what my encouragement would be to do what you can to enter the market, to get, and whether it's purchasing a condo, if it's getting something, because that will establish equity, and it'll establish opportunity.
Right. Well, and we're almost at that point right now, is that where the down payment is almost as much as the as the mortgage, or sorry, not the down payment, but that's the difference. That people are paying monthly as much as the mortgage for rent, and they just don't have the down payment to get into, right? Yeah. So,
and that's where again, if there's government programs that could help to accelerate the opportunity of getting into the market, that's again where we need to look to our to our government officials, public policy to identify what's the best point there, because it's as somebody who lives and resides here and works in the city, I don't want to see a further situation where there's a continued chasm. I do want to see opportunity for all. Right.
No, I agree, and I do agree that the way things are going is that we don't have as much of the middle class anymore, right? So that's already happening.
And if there's just one, Ryan, one more point, if there's just a way for us to really try to pivot the supply.
Right.
To me, the demand will always be there. A demand is enormous, but if there's a way to encourage.
Right.
Supply, if there's a way to be innovative with supply development, if there's a way to basically trim that gap of what we need, I think that is something that I'd like to see this area address, because that could also help to calm the waters.
Right. Well, we were seeing that with an interview we had with Chris Durrett, the head of SRA there, was just kind of saying is that we need to say yes to all these new, opportunities to build. And without doing that is that we're just becoming more in a deficit than what we are right now.
Well said.
Right. Yeah. Is there any other questions from the audience that we have for today that we've missed?
I have a question. It's kind of almost a sidebar, if you like, but I was just curious because you're from the business school, and you're saying in Saskatchewan we have this fortunate position of a strong economy and quite a unique position. And I'm just wondering, like, from a business point of view, for people who are maybe in a harder position, like, is there anything that they can do to help themselves maximize the benefit of living in an economy that's actually quite booming and doing well? Like, so are there opportunities for people to create their own businesses or to do stuff to effectively make their pie bigger that they can afford to buy, to actually enter the market or to do well in Saskatchewan?
It's a great question. if the pie remains the same size and there's more people that come into the market, we're basically cutting the pie into smaller and smaller slices, and somebody's not going to get any pie at all, and they're going to really go hungry. So your question, how do we actually increase the size of the pie? I would say there's two things at least. I would encourage people to take advantage of government programs to start up businesses. If that's their jam, if that's their real dream in terms of having a business idea or business creation, encourage them to take advantage. There are programs that can help leverage individuals into that field. Number two, I would encourage people to be creative in terms of maybe that initial home opportunity. That if maybe it's having tenants stay with you, maybe it's having a roommate, maybe it's just some way of being able to defray the costs. So do what you can to increase your revenue, and do what you can to control the expenses, because that could help to shield you from the, I think, the initial shock of entering the market, and give you a bit more staying power in the situation. Again, we're fortunate here that we've got a decent economy. For individuals that feel that maybe they haven't yet been able to ride that train, I would look for opportunities to really, again, grow and enhance current businesses or create new ideas. I think this province is open to that entrepreneurial spirit, with businesses that we've seen that have been created here, with new things that are popping up. To me, it's a really good time to be in the city.
I got a question. Well, one is, here's a little bit of a stat. 1 in 3 renters, 50% of their, so out of 1 in 3 renters, 50% of their income goes to rent. So, I mean, Ryan works with Hawk Helps the Homeless. I run onesmallstep.com, trying to connect charities and so forth. And we're seeing a bigger divide than we've ever seen. And I can't see it, unless large corporations and private wealth and we all get together as a community to make a little bit of, because we all have a part to play. Unless we all start doing it, I don't think we're going to make that changeover. But one of the things that, so our sister-in-law works for Bucci, a condo developer in Calgary, and then they build in Vancouver as well. And her insight was that, she goes, Greg, it's because she's been with my brother for 18 years, so they lived here for a bit, so she's seen this transition of building and city growth. She just said, it's interesting to see where Saskatoon is compared to where Calgary was 10 years and where Calgary was 10 years ago compared to Vancouver. It's almost like we're 10 years behind where the growth was on Calgary. Do you see this growth continuing for how many years? Because if you look at BHP is just opening up, you look at Gary Morassi is a great friend of mine. Peter Valentine group of companies has just started, I think, partnering with a copper mine. And you look at all these different mines that are now opening up and mining opportunities. Is just the beginning? Does this keep on going for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Or what's your thoughts on?
Excellent question. If this were a Netflix show, we're definitely not in season 1.
Right.
I think we are somewhere in the middle. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm, Professor Optimistic here or Dean Optimistic.
Right.
I cannot see a pathway by which in the next 4 to 5 years this is going to turn south. To me, I see that there's this growth, and again, who knows? Maybe in 20 years, maybe 25 years, maybe they'll, because of the emergence of clean energy or a change in the structure of our economy, maybe that will be that tectonic shift that's going to really pivot the marketplace. But if you look at how the economy is currently structured, about how we need to feed ourselves, how we need to fuel our vehicles, how we need to get from point A to point B, unlike, say, British Columbia and Alberta, we have a natural resource-driven economy, yes, like Alberta, but it's not just based on oil. And I think that diversification gives us stability that other jurisdictions lacked. And so we might have seen some bursting of situations in British Columbia and Alberta, or softening. Again, what I see it's beneficial here is a steady climb. It's not going to be where it's going to be like a huge climb and then a drop where it's like a roller coaster. I see it's a nice steady climb because we are well managed in terms of our operations as a province. We've got the diversified resources to really help us go forward. The chasm between sort of those who have and those who don't have, I like the idea of, again, if there's a partnering situation, you said of community agencies or charities that could help. to me, this is a team sport, and it's going to take the collective effort of a lot of us to be able to identify circumstances, because we've got enough land. We are blessed with land here in this region. We've got a lot of intelligent people and well-meaning agencies that could help address some of the concerns you raise for those who may feel that they are behind the curve.
Awesome, thank you. I think his Netflix comment is going to be a great clip.
Well, thank you very much for coming on and giving us some insight into the Saskatchewan economy and what we can expect. I'm happy to say at least Greg and I were a little bit on the right cue on this one, so that's good. But I appreciate your time, and we'd love to have you back again sometime if you'd like that.
Absolutely,
so,
and really enjoyed it. Thank you, Ryan.
Great, pleasure to meet you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.